Hey there, interwebs. I'm finally back and I come bearing monsters, a boatload of them, so let's just jump right in. We've discussed eagle-lion hybrids twice before already, but they're the gift that keeps on griffin. But seriously though, we've discussed the griffin, the winged lion, the ophinicus, and the keithong. I've read in various places on the internet of dubious authority that those spikes protruding from the keithong are actually meant to be rays of light, so... sure? Maybe? Another wingless griffin variant is the alce, also known as the Minoan griffin when it shows up around Minoan Crete. This still has the eagle head on a lion's body with all four paws, but it has no wings. It's sort of the avian equivalent of the ancient androsphinx. These days the androsphinx sometimes is shown with wings, but the classical androsphinx was Egyptian and didn't have them. The sphinxes with wings were Greek, but they're gynosphinxes and also have serpent tails. To be honest, I prefer the modern compromise where both genders have wings and no snaky tails, but that's neither here nor there. A general term for all wingless griffins is the demigriff, but this is a modern invention by fantasy writers and geeks like me. And then there are bat-winged griffins. These are giant creatures who look upon transcosmic gulfs, at least if H.P. Lovecraft is to be believed. As silly as the idea may sound, it's worth noting that unlike eagles, bats and lions are both mammals, so bat wings kind of make more sense biologically. If you like winged lions with feathers, there's also the Tatar Akbars. This snow-white leopard with wings is the official symbol of Tatarstan. If domestic cats are more your speed, there are always winged cats, and unlike other creatures in this video, sightings of these have been reported in modern times. Unfortunately, none of them can actually fly, because their wings are usually just loose skin or matted fur. The more interesting cases turn out to be supernumerary limbs, but still not functional wings. If you're more of a dog person, Samargal of Slavic mythology was a canine with wings, and possibly made of fire. Getting back to griffins, there's also the Axex, which is sort of the Egyptian griffin. It has the body of a big cat and the head and wings of a hawk, as well as a crest of 3 feathers. Egypt also gives us the Heracsphinx, which is like the alce or a wingless Axex, with a hawk head on a lion body, and the Criosphinx, which has a ram's head instead. D&D gives both the Heracsphinx and the Criosphinx wings as well, but go figure. Another quick griffin-related follow-up is about the Hippogriff. I didn't mention it at the time, but hippogriffs are kind of sub-mythical animals. Like, even in a world where griffins exist, hippogriffs are still considered fictional. This is because in order to get one, you'd have to breed a horse into griffin, and among griffins' supposed traits like their love of gold and hatred of cyclopes, they also don't get along with horses. Some sources even claim griffins eat horses, so trying to breed the two was used by Virgil as a metaphor for an impossible task. Some see them as a symbol of love or romance because of the whole star-crossed lovers angle. On the subject of non-traditional winged ungulates, I also mentioned the peregrine, but neglected to point out that it's a modern invention, created by Jorge Luis Borges for his book of imaginary beings. If you want a more ancient ungulate with hooves in front and bird parts in back, look no further than the classical Greek Hippolectrion. It's got the front half of a horse, and the back half is the legs, wings, and tail of a rooster. We really don't know much more than that about it either. It could have been a protector animal dedicated to Poseidon to defend ships, or it may have been a grotesque beast to amuse children, or it may have just been a crazy fantasy animal with no deeper significance. The name literally means horse rooster in Greek, but I guess the name horsecock was too misleading. Speaking of winged horses, I have a follow-up on Pegasus and how to pluralize it. While it's true that Pegasus was originally Greek, it only got to English by way of Latin, where it picked up the US ending, so if you want to call more than one Pegasi, knock yourself out. In fact, using a Latin plural makes more sense than a Greek plural because according to Greek mythology there was only one, and Pegasus was his name. When Rome was copying everything else from Greece, they took Pegasus as well and made it a whole species. Their bestiaries included a creature known as the Ethiopian Pegasus, but this is more like a winged gazelle and may have been inspired by behavior known as stotting or pronking. If you had a Pegasus or Pteropus with only one horn, like a unicorn, what would you call it? Some might say that's just a unicorn or a Pegasus, but they're wrong. Others might just call one a winged unicorn or a horned Pegasus, but that's equally as boring, albeit more accurate. Other names I've seen include the Pegacorn, the Unisus, and the Unipeg, and these are all incredibly stupid, especially the Unipeg. That sounds like something dirty. A winged unicorn, or more accurately a horned Pteropus, is sometimes known as an alicorn, but that's bad too. It comes from the French aile, meaning wing, and corne, meaning horn. But alicorn is also the name for a unicorn's horn. I traced the confusion of the two back to My Little Pony, and at that point I realized it was no longer worth investigating further. The best name I've found for a horse with wings and a unicorn horn is a caraptor. It comes from the Greek keros, meaning horn, and pteros, meaning wing. I have no idea if the P should remain silent. I'm going to pronounce it, but just because anything ending in raptor sounds a whole lot cooler. If you put those horse feathers on a centaur, you get a pterocentaur, which means winged centaur. You could also call it a pegatar if you're dumb. Where the wings actually go, though, varies. Some put them on the horse's back, while others put them on the human part. According to this ancient pottery, they should go somewhere in between, and I can get behind that, because that's where the wings are on a mantis, and they're the closest things we've got to centaurs in real life. If you want something slightly more terrifying, and by slightly I mean nightmarish, I offer you the Nuclevi. Thought to be influenced by Norse mythology, this Orcadian fae is said to resemble a fusion of horse and rider, but because the Norse and the fae are nothing if not hardcore, it's completely skinless. The horse head has a single red eye like burning flame, and its breath is foul-smelling and toxic, able to sicken livestock and wilt crops. The creature is also believed to cause droughts and epidemics. It comes from the sea, and like many sea monsters, it can't tolerate fresh water, unable to cross rivers or come onto land during rainstorms. Speaking of monstrous sea centaurs, one early depiction of Medusa shows her as one. Remember her father was Phorcys, the old man of the sea. If you're not fond of horse-based centaurs, also known as hippocentaurs, I'd like to introduce you to the heraldic charge of King Stephen. That's the top half of a human archer on the body of a lion or armed azure. It's referred to as a sagittary, but that name usually means hippocentaur with a bow. I would call this a leocentaur, and Mesopotamian mythology has a physically similar leonine centaur known as the Urmalulu. There's also the bucentaur, which is a bovine centaur, and the onocentaur, as in, oh no, what have you done now? You see, the lower half of an onocentaur is a hot piece of ass, literally. This asinine centaur was an allegorical symbol of hypocrisy and male lust. The human part was rational, but its lower regions were wild and violent. Sometimes it's shown with all 4 donkey legs, but other times it only has the back 2, similar to a faun or satyr, which were other wild and lusty hybrids. Another centaur-like hybrid creature with just the back legs of an animal is the Epoteny. These creatures are human from the waist up, but have the hindquarters, tail, and ears of a horse. They're also believed to have been the original centaurs of myth. Now for a short chimera follow-up. Because there are so many different depictions of them these days, you're going to get some crazy ones, but right now I'm focusing on heraldry. Heraldic chimeras are sometimes closer to the D&D version, with a lion's body, dragon's tail, and the heads of a lion, a goat, and a dragon at the front. Other times, though, they're doing their own thing entirely. These have the head and upper torso of a woman, the only occurrence of human parts on this creature so far. In spite of the human upper body, it's still got the body of a lion and no goat or snake parts. I'd sooner call that a gynosphinx, albeit one without wings or a serpent-headed tail. Other versions are slightly closer to the Greek chimera, but the only goat parts remaining are caprine hindquarters, which weren't on the original either. Some of these also trade in the lion tail for a more faithful serpentine dragon-headed tail. This also makes it closer to the classic Greek gynosphinx. Another flustercluck of animal parts is the Bavarian Vogeltinger of the alpine forests. This thing usually has wings, antlers, and fangs on a body of a small mammal, such as a squirrel or hare. The Swedish Skavado is a hare with the wings of a grouse, and the American jackalope is a rabbit with antlers. I presume the Vogeltinger is just what you get after the two of them do what rabbits do best. 2 other silly hybrid monsters, at least in my opinion, are the Ophiotaurus and the Myrmecolian. Their names mean snake bull and antlion, respectively, and no points for guessing what animals they're made from. The Ophiotaurus has the front parts of a black bull, presumably the head and forelimbs, and the tail of a serpent. It was said that if someone slew the Ophiotaurus and burned its entrails, that person would have the power to defeat the gods. This nearly happened during the Titanomachy, but Zeus's eagle swooped in and stole the innards before they could be burned. As for the antlion, there are 2 possible forms it could take. One is a small creature that preys on ants like a lion, and lends its name to this terrifying insect. The other is a more traditional hybrid of the 2. It has a lion's head on an ant's body. Because lions are obligate carnivores and ants are mostly herbivores, the beast quickly starves. Speaking of lion hybrids, a big chunk of the previous video in this series was dedicated to sea lions, merlions, morses, and lionfish. We also established in it that the seahorse can also be called a hippocampus. The same naming convention can be applied to the moors, so we can call it the leocampus. A similar leopard hybrid is known as a pardalocampus, a bull hybrid is a taurocampus, and Aigicampos refers to the mergoat better known as Capricorn. I suppose these fishbird things I saw one time would be griffocampuses? I honestly have no clue what they're supposed to be. If you know, let me know in the comments. One additional baffling note on hippocamps is that it's not uncommon to see them depicted with what might be fins but look more like feathered wings, of all things. I've heard of flying fish, but this is getting ridiculous. Returning to leonine monsters, do you remember the Manticore? The old version had venomous quills that could shoot like arrows, and newer versions gave it a scorpion tail and bat wings. Neither of these should be confused with a similar creature with a similar name, the man-tiger. This is a heraldic beast with the head and hands of a man on the body of a tiger. Not just any ordinary tiger, a heraldic tiger, spelled with a Y. It has the body of a lion or a wolf with a horse's mane. It also had a pointed lupine snout, but that's obviously not present on the man-tiger. The tiger is also said to be stymied by its own reflection in a mirror. In addition to the manticore, the man-tiger could also be confused with a lamia. If that idea confuses you, you probably picture a lamia as this, a sort of naga or snake lady, and you'd be mostly right, just not right now. Lamia in Tudor heraldry is a monster with the head, chest, and hands of a woman, the body of a lion, the rear legs of a goat, and a horse tail. In recent versions of D&D, she's a female Leo centaur, but in the earliest version she still has the goat legs. The serpentine versions are known as Lamia nobles. While we're on the subject, though, I may as well tell you a bit more about poor Lamia. As we learned with the Greek mythology video, many monsters were once more or less normal people, and Lamia is no exception. She was one of the many, many mistresses of Zeus, and if you've ever read any Greek myth, you can just skip ahead a few minutes. It didn't work out well for Io, it's not going to end any better for her. If you're new here, I'll give you the short version. Lamia was once a beautiful woman, possibly a Libyan queen or a daughter of Poseidon. She took Zeus as a lover because banging his own nieces is like half of what he does. Hera, predictably, wasn't keen on this and took vengeance upon her by destroying her children or causing her to kill them herself. Afterwards, Lamia was either disfigured by grief or Hera's magic and turned into a hideous monster who roamed the land, devouring the children of others, especially those who dared to mock her. Other versions say it was Zeus who turned her into a monster so she could take revenge. Hera also cursed her to never again sleep, so she'd constantly mourn the loss of her children, but Zeus granted her mercy. He didn't restore her former beauty or bring her kids back from the dead, though. No, he just gave her the ability to pull her own eyes out so she could rest. Remember, this is the same putz who thought it was merciful to turn Mira into a tree. To be fair, it's more like these were eyes that could be taken in and out, which does sound pretty cool. In other versions of the myth, Hera turned Lamia into a giant unblinking serpent, which may be where the modern snaky look got started. At some point in history, her popular image transformed from that of a child-devouring monster to a seductress who tempted young men before devouring them. In these tellings, she was a shapeshifter, appearing as a beautiful woman, then shedding her skin and becoming a scaly monster. John Keats's retelling of Philostratus's Life of Apollonius of Tyana cemented the beautiful serpentine look for her. The look I personally prefer, though, isn't a chimeral monster or a sexy snake lady, but a shark-like mermaid. You see, she was the daughter of Poseidon, god of the sea, and the mother of Achelos, who turned into a lipless shark after losing a beauty contest to Aphrodite. Lamia in Greek also referred to a kind of shark, and the Lamia myth may have taken inspiration from shark attacks on children. Her unblinking nature may even owe itself to the fact that sharks don't blink, at least not the way that we think of it. So what have we learned from all this? Whether you're into griffins, centaurs, or chimeras, there will always be a variant to suit your specific tastes. Horses go well with wings, which go well with everything, and everything goes well with lions. Don't confuse your antlions or mix up your manticores and man-tigers, and don't bone Zeus! If you enjoyed this video, you can show your support by sharing it with friends, following me on Twitter, or picking up one of my books on Amazon. Links in the description. Speaking of supporting creators, these are artists whose work I used for some of the visuals. CJ Monroe, GC Katz, JV Jones, Oliver Olsen, Olingo Corey Bing, Ben Kometz, Niall Valkitsa, Valerie DeCare, and Caitlin Solomon. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day. We've discussed eagle-lion hybrids twice before already, but they're the gift that keeps on griffin. No, I suppose that pun wasn't worth a 5-month wait. Myrmecolian? Wasn't there an anime called that? Xenon Exodus Myrmecolian? To be honest, Evangelion probably would have made more sense if the angels were all replaced by antlions. In addition to the Ophiotaurus, there's also the Batrachotaurus, or bullfrog. It's an original creation of mine, and my gift to you, fellow fantasy writers. And the mother of Achelos, who turned into a lipless shark after losing a beauty contest to Aphrodite. Because of course you're going to lose to Aphrodite, you dummy!